Welcome, everybody. My name is Bill Garrity. I'm the University Librarian and Vice Provost of Digital Scholarship. Thank you for being here for today as we celebrate the eighth instance of the Norma J. Lang Prize for Undergraduate Information Research. Before we begin, we should take a moment to acknowledge the land on which we are gathered. For thousands of years, this land has been the home of the Putwin people. Today, there are three federally recognized Putwin tribes: the Cachildehe Band of Wintun Indians of the Calusa Indian Community, the Quetzaldehe Wintun Nation, and the Yokadehe Wintun Nation. The Putwin people have remained committed to the stewardship of this land over many centuries. It has been cherished and protected as the elders have instructed the young through the generations. We are honored and grateful to be here today on their traditional lands. Now, the Lang Prize for Undergraduate Information Research it recognizes undergraduate students who have made prominent and exceptional use of the library's information resources and services for their research or a class project. This prize is tremendously important. For many of us in the library, it is personally the culminating high water mark of the academic year. We in the library see the whole arc of undergraduate life at campus. We see students when they show up during orientation, confused, bewildered, nervous, right? Anxious. We watch them as they grow over their 4 to 6 years with good behavior and progress as accomplished scholars, as excellent learners, as incipient faculty or researchers, and for the very best of them to become Lang Prize winners for their exceptional research. It means so much to us in the library to witness the achievement of these students from their arrival at Davis to this, which is perhaps their culminating event. We're deeply grateful to Andy Lang and his family for the support of this prize. I'd like to thank and welcome everybody who's here, all the applicants. I think this year we had a record number of applicants for this prize. I'd like to thank the committee that juried and judged the applications, the library teams that organized the prize and its efforts throughout the whole year, the wonderful website that captures the tremendous accomplishments of our Lang Prize winners. I'd like to recognize and thank my colleague deans for showing up. Dean Winey from the Biological Sciences, Dean Dillard from Agricultural and Environmental Sciences, and there you are. And Michael Bradford, the Dean of Undergraduate Education, who will be making some remarks presently. I'd like to introduce Andy Lang, the nephew of the late Professor Emerita Norma Lang, for whom this prize is named. And in a complete, this is the smallest world ever category, over lunch, Andy and I discovered that he now lives less than 1,000 feet from where I went to junior high school in Seabrook, Texas. Right? I mean, it is such a small world, right? But anyway, back to Professor Norma Lang. She taught botany here at UC Davis for nearly 30 years. She'll be remembered for her two passions: her dedication to her students and her love of the research process, right? And this prize brings both those together: her commitment to undergraduate education and her deep alignment with research. We were able to create this prize thanks to the generous gifts she left to the library. Andy has been our invaluable partner in advocating and championing this prize and honoring her wishes with us. So thank you, Andy, for being here with us. And would you please come up here and tell us a few words about your aunt?
Bill, thank you very much. Bear with me as I work through my teleprompter. I want to thank all the participants in this process, past and present. It's a pleasure to participate in what is now the 8th annual award of the Norman J. Lang Student Research Prize. Special thanks to Bill Garrity and the entire staff of the Shields Library, who've made their own contributions over the past years and this present year to another incredibly successful Lang Prize event. Many of the comments I'm going to make you may have already heard. Bear with me, because some of you who've come here year after year, you'll hear the repeat, but for the newcomers and really for our prize participants, I want to pass these on. I think it's important that I acknowledge the faculty that have been mentors to many of these students over the years that they've participated in this competition. I learned from lunch discussions today with the number of entrants now, it's really becoming a more challenging process for the review and judging of these papers. But you've added a special meaning to the success of the endowment, and I thank you. Professor Lang would be quite pleased. I also want to acknowledge another guest here, and I'm going to keep that one very short because dear, she begged me to do so. Longtime friend of my late aunt, my family in university, Professor Emerita Judy Jernstedt is here. So Judy, thank you. You've been here, I think, every year for this, and that's very much appreciated. I continue to be overwhelmed by the depth and quality of the papers selected for recognition with the Lang Prize, and as I learned today, the number of entrants was a record number, so that's really quite encouraging. I must say I've read all of them. Wow, a lot of it goes right over my head, but what I get out of it is I appreciate the hard work of these students and their contribution to the academic world and the research efforts to learn more about who and where we are. Very impressive. The collaboration of students, professors, mentors, and university leadership speaks highly of the environment that you have here at UC Davis. This has become such a wonderful tribute to the legacy of my late aunt, Professor Norma Lang. She'd be so pleased and impressed with the outstanding qualities of papers presented year after year. It truly creates a legacy for her and her love for academic research. For some quick background on her, and I think it's kind of interesting because many people, and you can actually find more of her bio on, I think, a university website. She was a sister of my late father and daughter of Dave and Mary Lang. Her father, my grandfather, was a freight agent for the B&O Railroad, starting in Dallas, Texas, made its way on up to Toledo, Ohio. She was born in Memphis on the way. My grandfather was a grandson of immigrants to Texas. That's how I ended up in Dallas, from Germany in the 1850s to pursue farming. She started her collegiate work at Bowling Green University in Ohio and finished her degrees in biology at Ohio State University in Columbus in 1952 and 1958 for her master's. She went on to Indiana University for her doctorate, studying with Dr. Richard Starr. She did research on her specialty, blue-green algae, using a new technology at the time, electron microscopy. Did I get that right this time? Her educational training then continued with postdoctorate work at the University of Texas in Austin as a National Institute of Health postdoctoral fellow, working with a notable collection of algae with Dr. Harold Bold. And I'm proud that she spent time at UT, which is my alma mater. From UT, she joined the UC Davis faculty in 1963, where she remained for the remainder of her teaching career of nearly 30 years. During that time, she distinguished herself in teaching and research. Her early research is funded by the National Science Foundation, and in 1968, she received a Guggenheim Fellowship for her sabbatical studies at the University of London. I visited her frequently after her retirement, and I can tell you that she loved Davis. And with this weather we're having, who wouldn't love Davis? This is wonderful. Her research was leading edge at the time in the use of electron microscopy for structural analysis of algae, and specifically blue-green algae. She was recognized for her research studies and leadership with numerous awards that you would find in her biography. But I want to highlight here, it is her love of teaching and working with students. She was known for being quite demanding as a professor, sometimes with a bit of an edge, pushing her students to high standards, but also known for having a kind heart and generation for those who wanted to engage in her teaching and learning. After retiring from UC Davis, she continued teaching by supporting adult literacy, largely to disadvantaged women at the Woodland Library. She held a very strong conviction for giving back to the community and society from which she was afforded such rewarding opportunities. And the message I wish to leave with you today is to remember the great opportunity you have been provided by this outstanding educational institution, UC Davis. As you secure your future success, remember UC Davis, and we would ask that you, of course, consider supporting the Lang Research Prize Endowment in the future. I do want to remark again on the prize-winning papers. They represent an incredible depth of understanding of the subject matter and provide strong support for the value that the library can play in your academic research. It demonstrates that there is more to source material than the internet. In the interest of time, I'll shut up now. I look forward, I can't wait for 2025. I've really gotten in the habit of reading all of these papers every year because they're just so profoundly interesting. And of course, seeing my friends again in 2025 here in Davis. Congratulations to each and all of you for your contribution to this wonderful prize recognition. I wish you the best in your future endeavors. And again, my special thanks to the Shields Library.
Yeah. Andy, thank you for being such a strong and tremendous collaborator with the library. So thank you. And I'm glad that you and Doxy could actually make the trip again and look forward to seeing you next year. Right? All right. Good, great weather, right? I'd like to introduce Michael Bradford, the Dean of Undergraduate Education. Vice Provost and Dean of Undergraduate Education. Michael and his office is responsible for supporting student success generally at UC Davis. Through programs such as the Undergraduate Research Center and the University Honors Program, the Office of Undergraduate Education encourages hands-on learning and research opportunities for students at UC Davis. He is super passionate about supporting undergraduate student success and has been a tremendous collaborator with the library. So, Dean Bradford, thank you.
Thank you. Hope everybody's doing well today. I was going to use that, Bill. It was so cool, and if I put my glasses up on my forehead, I would be bumping into the wall right now. It's really great to be here. I'm a playwright and a director, which is probably why I always say yes. I think most artists are scared to say no because you never know where the next gig is going to come from. And so my wife teases me that I say yes before you get the question out. But I always say yes when I get these invitations because it is just yet another opportunity to celebrate the students here at UC Davis and their incredible work. And oftentimes it is another opportunity to celebrate the folks who continue to support students as Professor Lang has done, with this incredible prize. And Andy and Dozie, it's great that you are here as well to celebrate these students. And, you didn't come across the street. You did a little bit of traveling to get here, so we must all appreciate that. I'm sure we can all agree that UC Davis believes in supporting students. The students on the first day they arrive, all the way through graduation, and certainly beyond. And every member of the university has a role in that student's academic journey. I'm sure we can also agree that undergraduate research opportunities are high impact practices and a high indicator of a student's academic success. So any way that we can support and encourage students to take advantage of research opportunities, it's what we need to do. And when there are institutions like Shills Library and support mechanisms like the Lang Prize, it just doubles that encouragement for students to take advantage of these research opportunities. The Lang Prize exemplifies this kind of support for undergraduates, and our winners today have an incredible, deep and exciting breadth of knowledge that they bring to this particular research and through the research that they have done. I was saying to Andy a little bit earlier, I thought I would sit down and do some light reading. No, that's not how this works. I'm going to need a day, maybe two, to get through some of this work. But I'm so excited that the work crosses humanities, the arts, and STEM. And for a prize like this and support like this, to support students outside of the quote-unquote traditional STEM courses is absolutely amazing, and we need more and more of it. So we have to really appreciate, when folks are given this kind of support and attention across the breadth of what the university has to offer. I want to thank all the university members who are involved, and so that's certainly the Bill and the staff here at the Shills Library. It's faculty, UWP lecturers, staff members, TAs, everybody here at the university who was involved in student success. And we all need to be involved in student success. So that person that's handing you that coffee across from the counter, they are involved too, because you're probably going to need that coffee because finals is coming, all right? So we just want to be appreciated and show our gratitude for all those who are involved in supporting these students as they continue to do their work. If you've read these applications and essays, it's clear that that level of support has had a tremendous impact on the students that we're going to celebrate today. But not only these students, we have to remember, there are a lot of folks, a lot of students here at the University of California, Davis, and those students are getting that support as well. So folks are busy. Many of our continuing contributors, even after they retire, many of our faculty are continuing contributors even after they retire. But this particular prize by Norma Lang is an incredible example of a dedication that she's had over many years, over 30 years of dedication to students and research and to student success. And that continues through this gift. It's been 8 years to my understanding. I suspect it will be many, many more. As long as I am here, I hope that I get invited back. I would love to be a fly on the wall to celebrate you all, as these prizes come your way, and to celebrate you for the work that you have done. Today, as always, Shills Library is playing a role in awarding and stewarding this prize in partnership with the Lang family. I believe that Professor Norma Lang's nephew, Andy Lang, is probably pretty happy about the work that's happening and the support that this prize is able to provide to students. But I'm sure the students are pretty happy as well. But they worked for it. They worked hard for it. You read these papers and you say, I don't know that I'm willing to work that hard right now. This is an exciting coalition between the Lang family and the Shills Library. It's a lot of work that happens here, and this award continues to grow. Bill talked about the fact, and Andy talked about the fact that there was a record number of applications this year, twice the number of students who applied last year, and hopefully that trend continues to move in the right direction. I suspect that it will. So, I'm going to get out of your hair. Now I'm going to shut up. So without further ado, let's meet and celebrate these outstanding students and their work.
Thank you so much, Dean Bradford. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Elisa McManus, and I'm Head of Student Services at the library and Chair of the Lang Prize for Undergraduate Information Research. Before we hear from our student winners, I want to thank our prize reviewers, many of whom have been with us for past competitions. Couldn't do this without you all being willing to read through the applications. I also gratefully acknowledge the library team who worked on today's event. This year, we were fortunate to be able to increase the amount of each award offered, and we received a record number of 46 applications compared to 22 applications last year. We also have a record-breaking number of 8 winners due to ties in the arts, humanities, and social sciences categories. So thank you to the Lang family for your generous gift to recognize these amazing students who use the library to do information research. And now we're going to get to hear from our prize recipients. Each student will give a brief overview of their project. If you want to know more about one or more of the student projects, you can find them on the library's website. To begin the award presentation, I'm going to start by presenting the third place award in Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences to Lily Tizza. Lily?
Hello. I must apologize. I'm much better at writing than I am public speaking, but I will try my best. So my research project, entitled Human-Centric Research and Energy Retrofitting Methodology for Historic Architecture, quite a long title, observes the intersection of energy efficiency and cultural heritage by exploring how energy retrofitting historic architecture affects the human experience. Energy retrofitting is simply just updating a building's existing energy equipment, such as HVAC equipment, or replacing and installing new and updated, is replacing HVAC systems, light fixtures, insulation to more updated, efficient, and more technologically advanced systems. Energy retrofitting historic buildings comes with an added challenge of cultural and aesthetic preservation, and I wanted to know more about how historic buildings could be modernized without compromising their identity. Personally, I have a deep appreciation for historic architecture, being of Hungarian descent and visiting the grand city of Budapest throughout many times in my life. And Budapest, being such a historic city, is home to, in my opinion, some of the most incredible historic architecture on earth. And it holds very fond memories to me and is just incredible. Really, historic architecture being something that people are innately drawn to, as proven by the popularity of heritage tourism, historic architecture serves as a symbol of the past. However, in modern times, these structures can also be like candy to bulldozers, unfortunately. And I wanted to study by how the means of energy retrofitting historic structures can perhaps lead longer lives and be protected for future generations. As my research into energy retrofitting historic architecture deepened, I realized that the existing data was very technical, frankly, very hard to understand, and very much was surrounded with statistics and just think engineering, hard stuff. Yet, as I was reading through this research, I noticed that it disregarded many aspects of the human experience, as human experience was not measured in terms of the success of these retrofitting projects, which I thought was a problem. So, as at the end of the day, architecture is for people, and people that utilize energy retrofitted historic structures should have a say in their success. Something that surprised me about this research was really how amazing it is, how carefully detailed and just really incredible the designers, engineers, and tradespeople must be to work on these sorts of projects, as there are several times many special problems that can arise, such as buildings being under certain protections. So ways in which the library helped me, a lot of ways. My library would probably be merely like a paragraph, so short without the library's resources, as the vast access to scholarly journals really served as the foundation to my research study. The contents of the library's websites and access to databases by subject has also helped narrow down the abundance of sources I encountered related to my topic. The UC Davis Library Search helped me find scholarly articles that I had access through UC Davis. By searching key phrases and correspondingly tweaking each phrase, I was able to ultimately draft the paper that I wrote. And the course that I wrote this paper for, being UWP 49, writing research papers, also required me to take a few extra measures, such as writing a matrix and an annotated bibliography, which furthermore helped me organize my resources. And also, throughout this process, I learned to treat the research process not as a race to the finish line, but as a walk with many hills and uneven grounds. The research process is a systematic endeavor that goes far beyond a simple Google search, as I used to think, something that I quickly caught on to during my time at Davis. And In terms of how this paper has helped me for my future, I will be in Budapest this summer for an internship related directly to the research that I presented, related to historic architecture in Budapest in terms of adapting buildings to meet sustainability needs and utilizing rating systems like LEED, LEED, or BREEAM, which are just universal measures of the success of a building's sustainability efforts. I am currently majoring in sustainable environmental design and double minoring in energy efficiency and sustainability in the built environment. So I'd say that this process in this entire paper has been very relevant to my current education and very likely my further education here at Davis. And yes, one more thing. I would consider this research as one mere step forward in my knowledge around fostering a sustainable built environment. And I'm also considering many master's programs after my 2026 graduation here at Davis that are actually also related to this paper. So really it has been a foundational sort of step in my future career. So thank you.
Oh, no, you're.
Now's the time.
Yes, now's the time.
Your stage manager. Congratulations.
Thanks. Yes, for those of you who have been to past ceremonies, it's very nice. I have someone to help me out today with the certificates. Thank you, Bill. And yes. And I did forget, I wanted to just be sure I acknowledge Lily's sponsor, Dr. Kendon Kurzer from the University Writing Program. I neglected to mention that earlier. So next I'm going to move on to the second place award for Arts and Humanities and Social Sciences. And this is where we have our first tie. And I'm going to start by acknowledging Jacob Klein. Jacob is a political science major, and their project, Transecting Russell Boulevard, explored historical changes in a 5-mile stretch of Russell Boulevard in Davis. Jacob's sponsor is Professor Patsy Eubank Owens from the Human Ecology Department. Jacob?
Hello, everyone can hear me, right? Yes. Okay, awesome. So my introduction, I am a political science major, but I took this class in the landscape design architecture department. This class, LDA2, Place, Culture, and Community, was my first experience with landscape architecture, sustainable environmental design, and a lot of these skills and experiences and understandings that I developed in this class are shown in my essay and all of the research that I conducted throughout the quarter. So this class taught me to never underestimate landscape, because under the surface there always is going to be some kind of hidden history. And throughout this experience, I found a 5-mile strip of land on Russell Boulevard, and I spent 2 hours walking along the entire way, taking pictures, making sketches, which I did not know were going to show up on Google Scholar after winning this prize. So that was a nice surprise when I found out about that. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have my work featured on Google Scholar, but that was a bit of a surprise. My landscape research really was throughout the agricultural areas of further West Davis as we moved towards the more built landscapes in East Davis. And the real tipping point and the real point between agricultural landscapes and built landscapes was Village Homes, which I investigated on one of my Transect stops. In case you don't know, Village Homes is a historic, sustainable living community that was built in the 70s and 80s, and Rosalind Carter actually visited the area when it was founded because of how big of a development it was. They take into account a lot of different sustainability aspects, including buildings that are faced in a certain way with north, south, east, west all in mind, because if the sun goes up one way and the sun goes down the other way, you can really just cut down your energy costs and be a lot more sustainable. They also were one of the first development programs to use solar energy, and it really is a great community. I have never seen a community that had its own vineyard on the landscape as well. So different things like that that kind of entice people to live in a more sustainable landscape, and that was very eye-opening to me. I also want to mention the first stop that I looked at. It was Fairfield Elementary School. So Fairfield Elementary School was actually founded 158 years ago in the 1800s prior to the incorporation of Davisville in 1917, before they cut off the ville and it became Davis as we now know. But that's a long sentence. But Russell Boulevard was named after Russell. The Russell family immigrated into Davis, California, or what was not Davis, California at the time, in the 19th century. They were farmers, and the son of the original man who moved to Davis, California, the son became county supervisor and did a lot of great work developing the landscape and developing the community, which is why Russell Boulevard is named in his honor. And his family actually donated the land which Russell Boulevard's Fairfield Elementary School actually sits on. So I was kind of able to make that connection between Fairfield Elementary School and Russell Boulevard. And at different points in my research, there were a lot of aha moments where I was really able to combine all of the things that I learned in the landscape architecture class with just the understanding that Davis is a really cool place with really cool history. Another aha moment that I had was when I was researching almond growing in Davis, and the Blue Diamond Almond Company was based on the Davis Almond Growers, there's a long name, Davis Almond Growers Association in the 1890s later became Blue Diamond Almond, and we all know of Blue Diamond Almond as like the only almond company that people actually know of by name. So that had very historic roots in Davis, and it's very interesting to kind of see how these national and international things actually began in the small town of Davis, and it wasn't even in Davis at the time. I do want to thank a lot of people who were with me every step of the way. So I took this class with Dominic Louis, and he's another person in the LDA department, and he did a similar transect also on Russell Boulevard. I was looking at one side of the road, he was looking at the other side of the road, because if you're walking 5 miles in Davis, you're not going to want to do that alone. So it was really great having someone there with me every single step of the way. Other people I want to commend are Patsy Owens, my professor, who was able to teach me all of these concepts about landscape architecture. I learned about different fences, I learned about different roads, and I was able to incorporate the knowledge from these lectures and all the pictures that I had seen on the slides from things around the country and around the world in my research. And as I was walking down the street for 5 miles in Davis, I was like, I remember learning about these fences. I know why this garden is right here in the middle of the road, and kind of being able to see how the things that you can learn in class actually do have real life applications was very, very eye-opening to me. I also would not be here if it wasn't for Sheena Campbell from the UC Davis Library. I'm very grateful. In the class, Professor Owens actually brought Sheena Campbell in to teach us about the map room and how to engage in research. One of the required components of the research paper for this class was going to the map room and looking at least one map. I looked at 3 maps in Village Homes to kind of compare the development of the land both before it was turned into Village Homes, while they were getting all the permits, and after it was finalized. Because of the amazing maps and the amazing resources that the library has and the amazing communication that I was able to have with Sheena Campbell, I was able to see a map before Village Homes was built, back when it was prime agricultural farmland, and that actually inspired me to do a lot of research in how various cities and various agricultural areas, both in California and the nation, have left a lot of their farmland, turned it into a lot more development, and that's led to a nationwide reduction in the amount of available farmland. But I was able to find that in Yolo County specifically, the trends are kind of opposite, and a lot of farmland is actually returning to prime farmland, and it's definitely interesting to see that Davis and Yolo County are kind of a little bit different than other communities across the state of California and across the country. And that is something that I'm very grateful for Sheena Campbell to exposing me for, very grateful for Patsy Owens for exposing me to landscape architecture, and very grateful to my classmate Dominic Louis for showing me about all of the great aspects of the LDA program. As I mentioned before, I am a political science major. I took this class as an elective, and if you told me that the elective class I was taking would result in a 40-page research paper that landed me in the Lang Prize Awards ceremony with $1,500 in my pocket, I'd think you were crazy. But I definitely do think that kind of my closing argument, or my closing, political science, I'm going to say argument. My closing point in this speech is that it's really great to just jump into whatever opportunities you can find, because a small opportunity like a 4-unit class that I ended up taking pass-fail, a 4-unit class that I ended up taking pass-fail turned into a research project that changed the way I view any street that I walk down, which inspired me to write this paper that I had to write for the class, but was also very, very eye-opening and amazing. It inspired me to apply to the Lang Prize, and now I'm here. So definitely take whatever opportunities that the world throws at you, and definitely I recommend reading my paper because I was able to completely change the ideas of how walking around communities is. You walk around a community, you see so many new things, and there's always something hidden deeper below the surface, sometimes literally. So being able to have these ideas and having these understandings from landscape architecture will change my career in political science and definitely resonate. And I'll have this in the back of my mind wherever I go in political science. I'll have this foundation in landscape architecture. So thank you to Patsy Owens, thank you to Sheena Campbell, thank you to the Lang Prize donors and the Lang family, and thank you so much for hearing my speech.
Trying to stay out of the photos here. So next I'm going to present the other second place award in Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences to Aubrey Hart. Aubrey is a biopsychology and music major. Music therapy in the U.S. healthcare system, past, present, and future, is her senior capstone project in music. Aubrey's sponsor is Associate Professor of Music, Juan Diego Diaz. Aubrey? Woo!
Here we go. Hey y'all, my name's Aubrey and I'm a biopsych and music double major, as I was mentioned before, and my research project is titled Music Therapy in the U.S. Healthcare System, Past, Present, and Future. This project consisted of two parts, the first being a brief history overview of how music and healing was used across the world and how music therapy arose in the U.S. from these practices, and the second focusing on the role music plays in the modern U.S. healthcare system, where I touched on the research behind music therapy and the issues regarding music therapists not being reimbursed for their services. I concluded this by proposing a solution for this issue, that music therapists should use unique CPT, which is current procedural terminology codes, which in short is how therapists communicate with insurance companies to report the services that they provided for their patients. And this would give them a fighting chance to be seen as unique from other types of mainstream therapy, which are more likely to be reimbursed than creative arts therapies. And I learned a great deal about how extensive music healing practices are, and I originally had zero idea that music therapists struggled so much with being paid for their services and accepted by insurance companies. And overall, this was a very eye-opening project for me and super rewarding, obviously, which furthered my interest and passion surrounding music therapy, since it's been potentially a career that I've wanted to pursue in the past, and I think I'm considering it a lot more at this point. And my little spiel about the library. Before I started this project, I hadn't really stepped foot in the library aside from locking myself in a room to study for 24 hours. The 24-hour room was my home. And I felt rather intimidated by the size of the library and just managed to kind of scrape by without using any of the databases or physical books. But I broke that streak when I had to check out a physical copy of a book pertaining to the history of music and healing. And Ruth Gustafson, who I want to thank from the bottom of my heart, love her, later reached out to me wanting to discuss my paper and help me find additional resources. Meeting with her opened up a Pandora's box of knowledge and sources that I could use, and I found the online databases to be particularly helpful when it came to finding super specific information that I would have to manually hunt for otherwise. I wish I had kind of bit the bullet and went to the library earlier in college, especially since this was my last quarter. I just graduated. So it would have helped me greatly in writing over the course of these past 4 years. But this will also help me in graduate school, because having a grasp on how to search for papers within these databases that would otherwise seem really too intimidating is extremely helpful and will set me up for the future. Over the course of last quarter, I learned that the library staff is extremely willing to help students, and I highly encourage more to take the leap and take advantage of these resources right at their fingertips. Very grateful for my mentor, Juan Diego Diaz, and Ruth for guiding me through my research last quarter, and I would not be standing up here today without their help and encouragement. Thank you.
There you go. I don't do this a lot. How's that? Is that better? Yeah. Okay. You're getting better. I know. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aubrey. So finally, I'm pleased to present the First Place Award in Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, and we again have a tie. First up, I'm going to introduce Celeste Palmer. Celeste, a history major, wrote their honors thesis on Mexican fertility, agricultural regeneration, and French informal imperialism in Mexico from 1861 to 1867. Celeste's sponsor is Assistant Professor of History, Jose Juan Perez Melendez. Celeste, I welcome you to the podium.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, I would like to thank everyone for coming here, especially my friends and family who are over there, and to give a special thanks to the UC Davis Library and to the Lang family for this amazing honor. So this project started from a desire to write an honors thesis which bridged my knowledge of the French language with my interest in Latin American history, especially in the 19th century. After consulting with my advisor, the amazing Jose Juan Perez Melendez, everybody there knows him, I decided to research the French intervention in Mexico. For a bit of background, in 1861, following a decision by the Mexican president of the time to cancel debt payments to foreign creditors, France invaded the country. In 1863, the French arranged for the Austrian Archduke Maximilian to become Emperor of Mexico. However, this empire did not last, and by 1867, the French pulled out, and Maximilian was executed. In late August and early September of 2023, I went on an archival trip to Paris. My goal while I was there was to look through the collections that previous historians had seen and to hopefully find new sources. After coming back from my trip and consulting the literature on this topic, I decided to focus on French and Mexican elites' views about Mexico's environment and fertility, and how these ideas influenced the French decision to intervene in Mexico and the subsequent governance of the Mexican Empire. I argued that an exaggerated trope of Mexico's rich fertility justified the French intervention in Mexico and encouraged Mexican politicians to collaborate with French military, diplomatic, and scientific elites. This fertility trope was two-sided. On the one hand, French government and intellectual elites argued that because Mexico was uniquely fertile, the country could provide French factories with an array of cash crops and raw materials. On the other hand, French officials argued that Mexico was underdeveloped and that Mexicans had abandoned their country. It was therefore necessary to, quote, regenerate the country with the help of French troops, of course. Now, French portrayals of Mexico as a uniquely fertile place appealed to the country's elites. These intellectual and government officials were motivated to collaborate with French elites, and specifically with French scientists and scientific institutions, by their own pre-existing fertility trope, as I call it, and hope to use science as a state-building tool. This Franco-Mexican collaboration was rife with tensions. The inherently unrealistic nature of what I call the fertility trope created complications when applied to real-world policies. For instance, both French and Mexican intellectuals hoped to encourage immigration to the empire. But Mexican government officials were often forced to turn down migration schemes, including some that were backed by the French, because of a lack of land or funds. So in conclusion, I could have never written this fairly complex essay without the help of the library. I had to use all kinds of databases, interlibrary loans, basically all of the stuff. And for this, with this in mind, this award is really a true honor, and it will definitely come in handy as I look into applying to grad school. Thank you guys for listening to me. Oh, yeah, that's right.
There's a photo opportunity. Good? Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Okay, and the other first place award winner in the Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences category is Annabelle Marshall. Annabelle is majoring in English and Cognitive Science. Toward an Infinity of Wavering Susceptible Variables, Camp, Audience, and Productive Distortion in John Ashbery's The Vermont Notebook is Annabelle's independent study thesis for English. Annabelle's sponsor is Margaret Ronda, Associate Professor of English. Annabelle?
Hi, very nice to be here. You just heard the title of my thesis. Please don't ask me to repeat it. I do not remember. But basically, it's about the great American poet John Ashbery and his relationship to camp. I first became interested in John Ashbery when I was studying abroad in England. I had a great advisor there who was very interested in Frank O'Hara, who is a contemporary of John Ashbery and a member of the New York School of Poets, which is a category that encompasses them both. And we would talk a lot about queer aesthetics in literature and in poetry, and the complications that are posed by someone like John Ashbery, who is a queer poet, but is at the same time very complex and dense and resistant to criticism and definition. And I settled on the queer aesthetic of camp, which some of you may have heard of, is also very difficult and resistant to criticism and definition, but basically deals with things like performance, authenticity, and exaggeration. And if that sounds needlessly complicated, it is. I came back to the US and I had decided I was going to write this research paper, not as part of any class, but I was just going to go and do it. And really what enabled me with the confidence was the library. I also went around bothering a bunch of English professors. I was very lucky to meet Margaret Ronda, who when I said, "Hi, can I come to your office hours to talk about John Ashbery," said, "Actually, why don't we start a class that's just you and me, and I'll meet you once a week for 10 weeks until we get this paper done," which was an incredible honor and proof of a very humble and giving professor here at UC Davis. But still, I had quite a task ahead of me, as everyone who is writing a thesis or has written a thesis knows, and the library was essential in getting that done. I checked out about 20 physical books from the library, most of them from a very specific shelf on the 4th floor. It's right about there, all about John Ashbery. I considered setting up camp there, but I was advised that would not be good. I made extensive use of online journals that are available to us as students. And I even got an opportunity to look at the Special Collections edition of the Vermont Notebook, which is the book that I ended up writing my thesis about. And it's signed at the very end by John Ashbery, which is super exciting. In my thesis, I argue that John Ashbery's use of camp in the Vermont Notebook reveals to us that his understanding of language is essentially a form of camp itself. By that, I mean that language is imperfect, it's performative, and it's productive. When we use language to describe something, we're not just mirroring or recreating reality, we're saying something else entirely, which is really exciting, and I think really expanded my understanding of poetry, and particularly John Ashbery's poetry. This project was super exciting as a way to expand my knowledge as a writer and as a student, and I'll take that information with me next year as I am a Fulbright Scholar in Switzerland teaching English, which interestingly enough is something that John Ashbery did as well. He was a Fulbright Scholar in Paris before he dropped out about halfway through, so hopefully it goes a little bit better for me. or I am like him and become a world famous poet. Either one is fine with me. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you to the Lang family and everyone who supports the library and who supported my project. Thank you so much.
Okay, now we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to switch over to our prizes in science, engineering, and mathematics. And next, I'm pleased to present Emra Naya with a third place award in the science, engineering, mathematics category. Emra is majoring in human development, and their term paper project, Delirium's Impact on Longevity in Older Adults, Unveiling the Connection, was for their longevity course. Emma's sponsor is Distinguished Professor James Carey from the Entomology and Nematology Department. Emra, will you please come to the podium?
Hello. My name is Emra Naya, as just mentioned, and my research project was on the impact of delirium on the longevity in older adults. For a quick background, delirium is a change in the person's mental state resulting in confusion, inattention, and distress. I decided to write my project on this after witnessing my granddad, who I call Boppy, go through a severe episode of delirium that had life-altering consequences. This was a topic that I had no previous knowledge of, and while researching, I was surprised to learn that many healthcare professionals also don't have familiarity with it. Delirium is continuously unrecognized, misdiagnosed, or mismanaged in healthcare. While researching, I was particularly struck by how many patient stories were similar to my granddad, where delirium was completely written off as something different, such as dementia. This is why I chose to write my paper on delirium in hopes of bringing awareness to others to this syndrome and prevent a similar distressing experience. Yet, I would not have been able to complete this project if it was not for the wealth of resources from the UC Davis Library. The library has consistently been there for me anytime I needed help, whether it was for strategies in formatting my research questions, to unlocking free articles from PubMed, to identifying other high-quality peer-reviewed articles from the 24/7 online librarians. The library has supported me every step of my research. Both this research project and the library researches will play a key role in my preparation as a future epidemiologist by giving me skills in especially researching writing, plenty of skills there, and then critical thinking and so much more. And then lastly, I just want to give the most gracious thank you to the Lang family, the Lang Prize Committee, my Professor James Carey, who unfortunately had to leave early, and my family for giving me the support and resources I needed to create this project. I wrote this project in my first quarter at UC Davis, and I would have never been able to do it without the support of all these people.
Okay, the second place winner in the science, engineering, and math category is Gemma Lay. Gemma is biochemistry and molecular biology major, and Gemma completed a systematic review of the efficacy of non-invasive neuromodulation in the treatment of drug-resistant epilepsy. Gemma's sponsor is Dr. Brendan Michael Johnston from the University Writing Program. Gemma?
Hello, hi everyone. So my name is Gemma and I'm a biochemistry student as mentioned before. First and foremost, I would like to thank the UC Davis Library, the Lang family, and Professor Brendan Johnston, who taught the UWP 104F class in the winter quarter of 2024. I would also like to thank our wonderful librarians, especially Eric Falzak, who visited our classroom and offered amazing advice as I began writing my review paper. It was wonderful to learn directly from the experts and from people who are so professional and efficient in locating organizing and accessing the library information. So thank you for your wonderful advice. So as mentioned before, my research project focused on studying the efficacy of non-invasive neuromodulation devices in the treatment of patients with drug-resistant epilepsy. Affecting over 50 million individuals worldwide, epilepsy is one of the most common neurological diseases and has significant impacts on quality of life. In patients with epilepsy, approximately 30% experience drug resistance, or also known as refractory epilepsy. And due to my background as an undergraduate research assistant at the Center of Neuroscience, and also due to my interest in neuroscience, I decided to write a paper on the topic of neuromodulation. So it is a type of technique used commonly known as brain stimulation as well. It's used to alter nerve activity, and it's a type of treatment for neurological diseases. It could be either invasive or non-invasive, which does not involve in risky surgeries. So the amazing thing is these devices seem to have great safety profiles and lower risk compared to the surgeries. However, its existence is not as well known to the public and also not as commonly used by the clinicians compared to surgeries. And that prompted me to look more into how effective they are in the treatment of epilepsy disorder. So given the existence of the UC Davis library resources, I decided to conduct my research using 3 different databases that are accessible through the library website, which is PubMed, Embase, and Scopus. Both PubMed and Embase are commonly used in the field of neuroscience and medical research, so the addition of Scopus provides a multidisciplinary approach enriching the selection pool. One of the things I really emphasize in the writing of the paper is the inclusion of selection criteria and methods. In the final draft of the paper, I include a table that outlines the general selection criteria, which is population, intervention, outcome, study design, and the language. The number of articles were then narrowed down using advanced search strategy of 7 criteria, which I also outline in the paper. So again, in UWP 104, Professor Johnston really emphasized the importance of including the methods section for the lit review. And I found this piece of advice really relevant to my research projects, as it heavily relies on information of clinical trials, and having clear outlines tremendously helped me in narrowing down my sources. And knowing how to navigate the tools in the database and how to locate the information I need is also just something that will always be helpful to me moving forward as someone who aspires to pursue medicine and research. Lastly, I would like to express my appreciation to UC Davis Library again, and to Professor Brendan Johnston and Eric Fosak. Thank you so much.
And finally, I'm pleased to present Rowan Webster with the first place prize in the Science, Engineering, and Math category. Rowan, a human development major, wrote her term paper, The Relationship Between Childhood Adversity and Aging, Implications for the Human Health Spans for Longevity class, and Rowan's sponsor is Distinguished Professor James Carey. Rowan?
Good afternoon, everyone. Like I was introduced, my name is Rowan, and I would like to start off by thanking the Lane family, the UC Davis Library, and Dr. Carey for making this opportunity possible for me. I would also like to thank my parents for their support. They are not here this afternoon as they're attending my brother's high school graduation, but I know they wish they could be in 2 places at once. But I would like to thank my grandparents who are here supporting me. My research paper was titled The Relationship Between Childhood Adversity and Aging, Implications for Human Health Spans. And a health span simply refers to the length of time an individual lives before the onset of age-related disease and illness. And if you didn't know what that word meant until now, that's okay. You're one step ahead of Google Docs and Microsoft Word, who still tell me that I spell it wrong every time. But I promise it's 1 word, not 2. As I worked on my project, I was shocked to learn the depth of the relationship between childhood adversity and health spans. Childhood adversity can literally cause cellular changes like suppressing genes or increasing the rate at which our cells age and eventually die. This in turn, along with other factors, leads to earlier onset of disease and frailty, which eventually lead to disability, morbidity, and mortality. So it's a pretty vicious trajectory. So clearly, childhood adversity is more than just a social problem. It's an issue that spans professions and disciplines, and one that I was in no way ready to tackle at the beginning of fall quarter. I owe a big thanks to Melinda Livis, hopefully I'm saying her last name right, whose presentations to the University Honors Program about library research exposed me to all the resources that I have at my disposal as a UC Davis student. These included the vast array of databases and peer-reviewed journal subscriptions that allowed me to examine this topic from the multidisciplinary perspective it really deserves. Yet, even with all these resources, I found that there are still a lot of things that we do not know, and that's okay. This project really taught me that research is all about acknowledging the brilliance of what we do know, while also acknowledging the gaps in what we still don't know. This understanding of research that I gained from this project is something that I have continued to keep with me in my other courses, and I know I will carry on with me in my academic and professional journeys. One such topic that we do not know everything about and that I conclude my paper by discussing is resilience, the idea that individuals can overcome these negative outcomes associated with adversity in childhood. And so while childhood adversity is a really hard topic to discuss, it's an important one to research so that we can help individuals avoid the negative consequences. And it is my hope that as people read my project, that is what they will take away, is this light at the end of the tunnel. But my ultimate hope, even as I'm so grateful to the UC Davis Library and Professor Carey for helping me make my idea a reality, my ultimate hope is that one day my paper will be completely obsolete because we will have developed the resources and tools to negate the relationship between childhood adversity and health spans, and that those who have had adverse childhood experiences will live lives as long and healthy as anyone else. Thank you.
I'm going to close us out here, and I want to say thank you again for joining us today to recognize and celebrate the remarkable achievement of these 8 students. We hope you'll stay and enjoy the refreshments, which are over here, and also take a few minutes to read the quotes from our winners, which are back over here, and also to take some time to meet this year's recipients. Thank you all so much for coming, and thank you again to the Lang family.
And I want to thank Elisa for being the leader and driver of this prize. If Andy and Doxy and the Lang family have provided the resources, and our excellent librarian colleagues are providing the expertise to support the students, Elisa here has been the driving force and the rock of this prize. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you so much.